Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about housing in Canada and how you can get an apartment as a newcomer. For those of you who are new here, I'm an international student here in Canada. Post content about what it is like as a newcomer in Canada, as well as living in the small city of Medicine Hat. So if this sounds like content that you would be interested in, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with a friend. Also, drop a comment down below. Let me know how hard it was for you to find housing as a newcomer, or if you're thinking about coming to Canada, let me know if this was helpful to you. So let's get right into it. Guys, when I decided that I was going to come to Medicine Hat, I did thorough research. I tried to find out as much as I could about the housing market in Medicine Hat and find out what was available for me. I have a small family, and so that took student housing out of the picture for me. I knew that I would need to get an apartment or a house off campus, and so I really focused my time trying to find out what were the options available to me for off-campus housing. So basically, there are 4 types of housing in Canada. You can have a house, an apartment, a basement suite, or a 4-plex or duplex. So a house is self-explanatory. It's someone's home that you're renting, an entire single detached home. An apartment is usually in a large building with other similarly sized apartments, and oftentimes apartments will come with some or all utilities included in the rent. Then a basement suite is basically living in someone's basement. So you can be living under the landlord, or you can be living under another tenant as well. So it's usually in a home where someone will rent the house part, and then you will live in the basement. And then the plexes, duplex, 4-plex, 6-plex, I believe they sometimes have 8-plex. It's basically apartments that are in houses. So outside will look like a house, but they have split or made self-contained apartments within that home. So it gives you an apartment feel. So it's basically an apartment in a home. So it's giving you that home feel. You don't have a whole bunch of neighbors around you, and you're able to have your own backyard and sometimes even front yard. So those are the types of housing. Now, what you need to do is look and determine what type of housing is best for you. If you're a single person and looking to save some money, then oftentimes an apartment that includes most or all of your utilities is going to be your best bet. If you're a family, especially with young children, you may consider a 4-plex or even a house to give your child some space to run around, especially if that's what you're used to in your home country. So what I would recommend is, once you've decided on the city that you are going to move to, you need to look online for websites, rental websites that will show you what type of housing is available, as well as the cost, as well as the distance from amenities. So things such as supermarkets, schools if you have children, your school if you're going back to school as an international student, as well as your job if you are fortunate enough to have found a job before you land. So you want to find out what the layout of the city is before you get here, so you can know, okay, what area should I be focusing on to try and find housing in. Another tip is to look on Facebook. Sometimes Facebook Marketplace will have rentals on there, and then there are Facebook groups that have rentals specific to the city that you are going to. So a simple Google search or a simple Facebook search will lead you to these websites and these groups, and you're able to see what amenities are available as well as the price range, so that you can be better prepared. Another tip that I would give is that you should try and arrive in Canada closer to the 1st or the 15th of the month. So in Canada, places are usually rented on the 1st or the 15th of the month. That is in most cases. Sometimes you'll find a landlord who is willing to rent you at any point in the month, and you just pay the difference. So let's say you land in Canada on the 22nd. Then sometimes if you're able to find a house before the 1st, then the landlord will allow you to move in early and pay for those extra couple of days before the 1st of the following month. I hope that makes sense. So another thing to note is that a lot of places are going to ask you to have tenant insurance. Tenant insurance was a new thing for me. It's basically insurance to cover your property in case to cover their property in case something goes wrong while you're living here. So you want to get that. Sometimes they'll even tell you that it's a condition before you even apply. So right now I believe we're paying about $20 to $30. I'm not sure how expensive that is, but it was a requirement, so there was no going around getting it. We had to get it. So it will basically insure your property in the event of a fire, flood, natural disaster like tornadoes or anything like that. So it will protect your property, as in what you have in your apartment or your home, and it will also protect the landlord's property. Another tip I would give is to find accommodation for the first couple of days that you're here. Now, finding an apartment before you land in Canada can be very challenging. So I would suggest that you plan to come a few days before so that you can look around and be physically present when you are looking at these apartments and when you are going to sign a lease. I would not recommend that you sign a lease or pay any money before you are physically able to view this apartment yourself. Because in Canada, leasing is a serious thing. There are a lot of terms and conditions associated with leasing, and if you break the lease or if you break any of the conditions of the lease, then it's going to end up costing you. So you want to make sure that you are comfortable with what you are paying for, because chances are you're going to be living in that apartment or that home for months or even years. So you want to make sure that you are comfortable with how it looks, the area that it is in, whatever amenities are included before you sign or pay anything. When you come a few days before the 1st or before the 15th, I would recommend that you stay in a hotel or an Airbnb so that you're able to go on the ground and see exactly what it is that's available for rent. Now, some persons stay in a hotel. I find that Airbnbs can be a bit more affordable, but it's still very expensive. I ended up staying in an Airbnb for almost 2 weeks when I just landed, and that money could have paid a month's rent. Let that sink in. But it was a necessary expense. I was not comfortable spending money and signing a lease before I was able to view the property or before someone that I trusted would be able to view the property. So I got an Airbnb and I hit the ground and started to look at places before we were able to find this one. Another challenge that a lot of newcomers face is that you don't have a credit score when you just land. And a lot of times you don't have a job either. I know for international students, you're not allowed to start working before school starts, and most of the time you're going to arrive before school starts. So you won't have a job and you won't have a credit history in Canada. Those two things are very important to landlords here. So what I would recommend is that you go for a rental company or a rental agency versus an individual landlord. Individual landlords tend to have a lot more qualifications or want more from you before they rent you their place, which is understandable. If you're renting your place to someone, you want to make sure that they have stable income, etc., etc. But as a newcomer to Canada, and without credit history or without a job, it's going to be hard to prove that you are stable and that you can pay for this apartment. So what I would recommend that you do, you travel with your bank statement. Now, depending on the type of visa or permit that you're in Canada on, whether it's a study permit, work permit, or even permanent residency, I believe that they ask you for proof of funds to show that you can support yourself here. So what you can do is print your bank statements and carry it with you when you are applying for an apartment, so that they can see that yes, you do have the funds saved up, whether it's in your home country or in Canada, and you would be able to pay your first couple of months rent. That's another tip. Try and have 3 months rent saved up and dedicate it solely for the purpose of rent. Now, that's easier said than done, especially if you're coming here as an international student. You already have to pay a huge amount of tuition fees. But that's my suggestion, and a lot of times these rental companies and these landlords will be quicker to rent you their property once they see that you are able to pay for a few months in advance. Now, some of them are going to want you to pay for a few months in advance, and I would say it depends on how much you want that place, as well as how much disposable income you have. If you have the money to spend 6 months rent just to get the apartment, do you? But I didn't have it, and so when an apartment told me that I needed to do that, that was my cue to look somewhere else. And I was able to find a rental company, and they rented me this property just by showing my bank statement. So those are my tips on how to rent as a newcomer to Canada. I hope you found this video helpful. Drop a comment down below. Do you think these tips are helpful? And if you are already in Canada, let me know what it was like renting your first apartment. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I post videos weekly on my experience here in Canada. Like this video and share it with a friend who you think might benefit from it. See you in another video.